did it cost?
Everything.
The latest episode of House of the Dragon has got me feeling strange about a few things. Of all the weird changes and nonsense, there's one part that I just cannot understand. Now, one thing to make incredibly clear here, okay? Whether you are a black or a green supporter, whether you like RHAENYRA or Aegon, that does not matter to me. I really don't care, because frankly enough, I'd rather just send both factions into a sun to burn. But spoilers ahead. Now, the thing I can't understand is the situation around Otto Hightower. Of course, you have those who are going to be wondering, how did he end up getting put into a cell? Why the heck was he in there since season 2? What was the circumstances? I honestly don't care about that. You see, while he was reintroduced in this episode after being in a cell, probably as a contingency plan by Lara Strong, just in case things went to hell and he needed a strong political thinker and smooth operator to make things work out in his direction in order to keep him alive, or even as a bargaining chip, to be entirely honest. But what gets me isn't Otto's death in this episode, which that guy annoyed the hell out of me. But hey, he's gone now, thankfully. Instead, it's how RHAENYRA stood there with Dark Sister before the lords who were faithful to their oath and was bawling her eyes out. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that RHAENYRA in the show is not the mad, vicious monster in the books, and frankly neither is Alicent. The thing is, I don't expect them to be, but if there is one person in the entirety of the dance that deserved the incandescent hatred of 10,000 burning suns, it is Otto Hightower. When thinking on the situation, one could honestly set the Dance of the Dragons at his feet. While the guy was a good hand and a shrewd political operator, he had the subtlety of a dang rock. And while no one is innocent in the dance, except for Helena and the children, we will get around to what the heck they were doing with her at some point in the future. He is basically the driving force that made the dance a possibility. Now, of course, you have some likely saying this is a farce, or that there would always have been a civil war because RHAENYRA would be sitting on the throne instead of a guy. And the latter may be true, but let's examine Otto Hightower just for a bit, shall we? First, he caused the disinheritance of Daemon by revealing the statement heir for a day after the death of Queen Aemma Arryn and Balon, weaponizing the comment which caused Rhaenyra to become the heir to begin with. Was this something he wanted to have happen? Not really. He didn't want Rhaenyra to become the new heir. But you see, Viserys didn't have a choice at the time, so you take him as you can. But was he justified in his fears against Daemon? In which case, I have to say, yeah, he definitely was. But this is still the first step in what would become the dance. He helped create the political situation that would get Rhaenyra to become the new heir and even set the stage for this. And, he was there when all the Lords of Westeros made the oath to have Rhaenyra be the heir and the queen when Viserys finally died. Okay, so we got that one out of the way. Next one is grooming his daughter, essentially pimping her out to Viserys as another option rather than marrying Lena Velaryon. And before any of you actually tried to say it, no, I don't believe he should have married Lena Velaryon, but it did put Hightower blood in the royal lineage, giving them a shot at the Iron Throne, which planted the seeds of the succession crisis by utilizing the king's own grief to their advantage. And then, once his grandson Aegon was born, the man's subtlety went from street cunning to outright stone-level stupidity, as he insisted on Aegon being made the heir. Okay, so here's a few things with this situation. First off, Viserys didn't bring the lords back in order to re-swear their oaths to have Rhaenyra become the new queen, because by that point in time, a lot of the lords who actually made that oath had actually aged out and died, like they went out straight to pasture. Viserys did because that would be saying that the crown's power was not absolute. The words and the commands of the Iron Throne was not absolute. A very dangerous precedent, which, let's be fair, if Otto had actually switched the succession back to Aegon from Rhaenyra, it would literally cause the same issue. This isn't like the Great Council of 101 AC. This is a completely different situation and probably even more volatile as a result, which means Otto's whole entire let's switch the succession back to Aegon, kinda dumb when you think of it, but oh well. control. Not only that, for 20 years he used this to undermine at every turn, surging discontent that had been growing because Viserys wouldn't change the succession, which again, if he did, the absolute power of the Iron Throne would be basically non-existent anymore. Yeah, not a very good look. He even whispered into Alicent's ear about the danger of Rhaenyra sitting on the throne. And let's be fair, that actually being utilized by Alicent, misunderstanding Viserys' final words to justify Aegon's ascension. So it's a bad situation no matter which way you go about it. He just straight up committed treason. I mean, it's a bad situation no matter which way you go about it. But also, let's take something else into consideration. After Viserys died, the Small Council already had plans to replace Rhaenyra with Aegon to crown him king, even though Alicent was completely unaware of these plans. Now, I will get into that later as well in another entry because let's be fair, that's just a bit weird. But you're telling me that the Small Council had been plotting treason to usurp Rhaenyra's claim for Aegon without Otto's little hand somehow being involved? I really don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised if this was set up all the way back when Otto was made the Hand of the King for the second time under Viserys. And then he also turned Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship into bitter rivals and enemies. Now, I will clarify, Rhaenyra did not help this in the slightest with her little half-lies, I guess is what you could call them. But even then, Otto actively damaged the trust that they had when it was needed most, isolating these two women and putting them into a state of war along with their families. And they couldn't really come back from that, despite the fact that Alicent will later attempt to reconcile by letting Rhaenyra sit on the throne and letting Aegon and Aemon die. Well, Helena and her remaining child got the heck out of King's Landing. There was really no way to reconcile this at all. So with that in mind, with Rhaenyra standing there, holding Dark Sister, having freshly lost her son at the Battle of the Gullet, she weeps?
Seriously?
Some say she's not weeping for Otto, but for herself, because, this would be her first kill. But the pain is still fresh. It's still raw despite everything. This man, whose ambition indirectly led to the deaths of Luke, Jace, Rhaenys, the destruction of the Velaryon fleet, the sacking of Spice Town and High Tide, the deaths of countless small folk, casting the entirety of Westeros into a full-scale civil war, the burning of his own grandson, Aegon, the animosity between Aegon and Aemon, the starvation of King's Landing, the death of Jaehaerys, a child who didn't even deserve any of this nonsense. How can that be worth shedding tears over in anything other than pure rage? Is Rhaenyra just intellectually and emotionally bankrupt or something? Like, I understand she's supposed to be out of touch, not really understanding what the heck is going on, but come on! You have got to be kidding me. Let's be entirely honest here. Some of this can be laid at Viserys' feet. Definitely. But as well at Rhaenyra's and Alicent, and basically along with everyone in the dance, but Otto has the lion's share. As much as Rhaenyra is not her counterpart, not the monster that she should be, her standing there, blubbering before ending Otto should never have been the image. And while she's trying to live up to the idea Viserys had for her to be the ideal queen, the one who united Westeros to fight against the dark and the cold, to live the legacy of Aegon the Conqueror of the Song of Ice and Fire, this was one of the times where the rage of a dragon could have come out against someone who absolutely deserved it, against a person who, knowingly or unknowingly, was working to destroy the House of the Dragon and everything they had built. While Otto had been a good hand, it doesn't matter how sincere his thoughts were, how righteous or correct his motivations. This war, which would see the Targaryens fall into decline and eventual destruction, was caused by him, while Rhaenyra was made to look weak and pathetic by that action. There's something I'm actually glad for. The lie he attempted to state before his death, it never truly made it out, but halfway, that he had done his best to serve. The delusion of false duty which covered up the disgusting naked ambition that set the flame. Otto is lucky that it was Rhaenyra and Daemon he faced, because if it was me, his head would not have been the only thing rolling.